So if anybody has questions in the middle, I'd rather keep them towards the end. But if it's necessary and you feel like you really need to ask right away, then go for it. Before I get started, I just wanted to speak a little bit about how I got to doing China and the experience that I went through leading me to get to knowing a little bit about importing and exporting from China as well. Okay, so when I was 19 years old, as you know, some Chabad people, they go on shlichus and all over the world. I really had two options. I wasn't sure where I should go, and I had two options. I was either going to go to Nepal or I was going to go to Hong Kong. And I really asked my brother, who was in Hong Kong a few years before me, asked him for advice, and he told me, well, if you go to Nepal, you're going to have a great experience, you're going to have a lot of fun, you're going to meet a lot of interesting people. But if you go to Hong Kong, he suggested that you could meet amazing people, you can have an amazing experience, but it could lead to something that you could see a lot of benefit in the future. And when he said that, I decided that I was going to choose to go to Hong Kong because my future is also important. And I think that generally when dealing with China, and especially with importing, it's very important because usually with importing, you're talking a minimum of 45 days at minimum to get a product from China, especially if you're doing by container and not in air shipment. So I decided to go to Hong Kong. While I was there, I met a lot of businessmen, establishing a lot of relationships. And I really thought every day that I was in Hong Kong, I was thinking about, obviously my duties that I had to do while I was there for the Chabad house. But once I finished, I really had a goal. My goal was to succeed. I didn't really know how, but establish relationships. And it was an amazing experience. So after the full year, when I was in Hong Kong, Hong Kong is one of the biggest trade countries in the world, meaning with trade shows and convention centers. And there's every week there's another category of shows in Hong Kong. So throughout the year that I was there, you met from any industry, from diamonds, clothing, doesn't matter what it was, but we met them. It was part of our duties to do that. So after my year, I got back to the States, and I decided to reach out to some of the businessmen that I met in China, see if I could start working with them. And I started by calling a person that I was in touch with him. He was in the diamond industry, and he interviewed me. He was ready to hire me. I got to him, and I realized that I had no clue what I was doing. I was young. And he was telling me about, the 4Ds and all these things, and I was like, I have no clue what he's talking about, so it wasn't for me. I reached out to another person that was in the clothing industry, and basically the same thing. I came to some realization that I wasn't willing at the point or I didn't want to work for someone else. I just wanted to go ahead and try to establish my own company. So a few days after that, I left the apparel company and I decided to pick up and go to China. I went to Guangzhou, not sure if you heard of that place, where the Canton Fair holds place. It's an amazing place, very nice, and I went there along with two other friends of mine and we opened a business. We weren't sure exactly what we were going to do, what category, we just said let's take off and go, see what happens. We got there and we met a couple, an Israeli couple, that did a lot of exporting of tiles, granite and marble. And they were kind enough to share all the information with us, like spilling the beans basically. They showed us factories, they showed us invoices, they showed us how to export, what kind of insurance you need, if you need export license. And we felt comfortable enough after 8 months living there in China, me and my two partners, to come back here and try to establish a business. And so we did. We basically came back to the States, we opened the company, and we started importing tiles and granite and marble. We were all young and eager, but we didn't have enough experience to run a proper business. So we did that for about 2 years, and after 2 years of importing, and then it slowed down a little bit, we decided that we're going to close our company, and we blame it on the fact that we didn't have the infrastructure that we needed to do to establish a good, solid business. We were young, we knew how to sell, we knew how to buy, but everything else, bookkeeping, account, we didn't know what we were doing. So I myself, personally, I was thinking to myself, I'm not sure exactly how, I love this industry, I love China. I knew a lot at the time about China, but how do I take that to the next level? And I was thinking, and I was discussing with people, and I went back to the relationships. Obviously relationships is a very big factor when it comes to China. It could, you could save a lot of money on a solid relationship in China, and we'll get to that soon. But basically, I decided to take a step back and work for a company and try to see if I could utilize my knowledge and maximize the potential to see if we could do something together. So I reached out to a friend of mine who had an e-commerce company at the time, and he took me in. He said, no problem, look, we have the sales channels, you could do all the buying. And so we did. We started importing, and it was kind of like a daily deal site, so there was no specific category. Part of my duties was to do as much as possible, whether it was electronics, whether apparel, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's sold. And we did that, and it was a very good run. It was amazing. They were very satisfied with the results, and within those three years or 4 years that I was there, I kind of felt that I was comfortable enough to leave the company and start something on my own. And a few years ago, we started my own company, and that's part of the reason that I'm here today. So today we're basically going to speak about 3 basic topics about China, and they are as follows. I'll just give you some, and then we'll go one by one. So the first topic is going to be minimizing your risk of getting taken advantage of. So when dealing with China, there's definitely a lot of risk. If you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't do your due diligence on checking and making sure the factories are legit. So to be honest, if you asked me 10 years ago how it was, I would say that any person who's starting China must go to China, because there was a lot of scams going around. There was a lot of fraud, money. I've heard stories from close friends of mine, even today, that are just getting their money taken away from them. But we could minimize that by taking a few steps and making sure that when we send our money to China, it's not 100% risk-free, but at least we minimize it to the fullest extent. So that's the first topic we're going to talk about. The second one is the best way to source from China and maximize your purchasing power. So as we all know, there's a lot of different ways of sourcing. A lot of people heard of Alibaba. There's a lot of trade shows out there. So that's going to be the second topic. And the last one is going to be step-by-step guide on how to import from China to your door. Very simple steps, what we need to do. And that every person, no matter what you do in China, you have to go through these steps. But not everybody knows these steps. If you miss one step, you could hurt yourself potentially. So let's get back to the first topic, which is minimizing your risk and getting taken advantage of. So the actual number one that I would suggest to do, again, if it was 10 years ago, it would be a must. Today, it's definitely not a must, but if you happen to go to China, that would be your best way of minimizing your risk. If you actually meet the person, you actually meet the factory, you sit with them, you deal with them, there's a lot of benefit in that as well. Like I said before, relationships are very important with China. Just a personal story, I spoke to my partners a few years ago, and I told them that there was this one product that I was bringing in consistently that we were importing, which was a very good seller. I told my partners, look, I want to go to China, I'm trying to negotiate over the phone, trying to negotiate by email, on the specific product. All I wanted was a few cents less, but we were importing a lot of volume, so it made a big difference. So we basically decided to we put a budget together. We said, let's put $4,000, $2,000 for the ticket, you get food, whatever it is, go to China. I went to China, we negotiated, and obviously it strengthens the relationship. We negotiated 7 cents on a certain product, and obviously it covered the trip. And that's something that I wasn't able to do over the phone or by email. So that's one very big factor. The second thing would be definitely going to trade shows. These days, what they did, I don't know if you've heard of Global Sources. It's a trade show kind of corporation, and they do all over the world. They have in South Africa, they have in England, they have in Hong Kong, in Asia. So Global Sources is something that, in order for a factory to get in to the actual show, they have to go through an extensive period of, they have to sign up and show proof of employees and show proof of an established business. So anybody that actually is at that trade show, I've actually met people that went to trade shows that were fraud years ago. That were fraud. They just opened a booth at the Canton Fair. They claim to be a trading company, which isn't a factory. They're just like kind of brokering deals. And, ended up being that they were fraud. But these days with the research that the trade shows do to allow factories to come in, I would say that it's safe enough that if you go to a trade show, that would be my number 2 on how to minimize your risk. Would be, first thing is to actually meet the factories. Second thing would be if you go to an actual trade show and you meet the factory face to face, that's a pretty good option as well. If you can't go to a trade show, if you're stuck in wherever you live for other reasons, if you have a simcha or if it's a holiday, and there's a lot of agents in China, whether they're American companies or Chinese companies that you can use, and you can send them for you to trade shows. If you have friends, which is another thing, but if you can't actually go to China, you can send someone to factories, and if you need help on how that can happen, then I can help you. I'll give you my email address after we speak. Another thing is phone calls. I would suggest that, especially if you're new in the business, anything you can do to just make sure that you're actually speaking to a real factory, not just someone who will take your money, do that 100%. Whether it's phone call, email, making sure everything is correct. Another thing that recently happened to me, and it's pure hashgacha pratis, let's put it this way, is that this was maybe 3 months ago. I'm dealing with the factory for about 2 years, importing some home good items. And I'm always in contact with them either with WeChat or WhatsApp. WeChat is the Chinese WhatsApp. So I'm talking to my sales rep, and I told her I placed an order for another order for the product, and I get on WhatsApp, I get a message saying, oh, by the way, we changed our banking information, which is always a fishy thing when you're dealing with factories. If you have an established relationship with a factory, and in the middle of anything, they just change their banking information, you really have to be careful. That's something that you really have to look out for. Make sure none of the information changes, unless it matches, and then obviously you got to make sure that if it does change, you have to reach out to some people, which again, you can reach out to me. I'll show you, after the speech, I can tell you how you can prevent that. But basically, so what happened was, she texted me new banking information, and I texted, and as someone that we had a great relationship with, we've been dealing with them for 2-3 years already, and I felt comfortable enough to just tell my bookkeeper, okay, make the payment for this and this factory, and I sent her over the invoice. But I sent her the old invoice. I forgot about the new banking information. So she sent the wire to the old banking information, and a day later, I remembered about the new banking information, and I spoke to her right away. I called up my bank, and I said, my banker, and I said, can you please do me a favor, check if the wire went through? She said, sorry, the wire went through, and basically I contacted the Chinese factory, And I asked my rep, can you please make sure to transfer the money from the old account to the new account, this way we're secure. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the new account that you told me about. I'm like, I have no clue what you're talking about. What new account? I'm like, I sent her pictures from it was actually WeChat. I sent her pictures from WeChat showing her that she told me about this new banking information. Ended up happening that the whole thing of the new banking information was fraud. So thank God that I didn't send it to there, but that's something that, I learned a big lesson from there as well. You always have to be careful. There's, obviously when sending over funds, you'll receive an invoice. Most factories have websites. Go to the website, make sure that everything, the whole description on the invoice matches one-to-one to what it says on the factory website. If it's the address, the emails, a lot of times if you're talking to ABC factory, another fraud way, another way for them to steal your money is they'll establish a relationship with you. They'll open, could even be the salesman. They'll open another corporation that they would own under ABD import or whatever it is, and then they'll simultaneously they'll change their email address while you're having conversation to the new email address, the new domain. You probably won't realize it, but I would say any time before making an actual payment, just go through all the invoices, make sure the factory information is correct on the website, and you're secure, or it will minimize your risk. I would say never ever, no matter under any circumstances, don't send money ever to a personal account. If someone says, look, it's a business, I'm the owner, I'm the CEO, I'm the whatever it is, our business account is closed right now, just send it to my personal, not a good idea. Don't do that. And the last thing is just be prepared, obviously, when doing that, before you order any product. This is already in the US, less in China, but patents and trademarks on items in the US is something that unfortunately a lot of people don't really know how to check. And it's a lot of money to check on patents, but Chinese factories obviously will tell you anything. And it's a big risk that anybody who purchases from China is taking when they actually believe a factory by saying this isn't a patent or a trademarked item or a trademarked company. If they're going to tell you it's our brand. Then when you import it, you see someone else selling it on Amazon or in a retail store, and it's actually someone else's brand, and they just sold you a knockoff. So just keep in mind, factories in China do not care about anything that happens in the US. They just want to make that quick sale because the competition is so great in China. And that's one of the reasons why I would say today is a lot more secure than ordering from 10 years ago. If you order from China today as opposed to then, today is definitely a lot more secure because of the competition and the way that most factories, like Alibaba sites, stuff like that, are, they check up on factories. Another thing, okay, let's move on to the second topic. So let's finish with this topic. Does anybody have any questions? I guess we'll do topics.
You mentioned brands and patents. How would you check those in?
Well, my advice is definitely, so if you see something if you have a product that someone that you like, you see it selling on Amazon, for instance, and you like this product, but you only see 2 sellers selling it, and it's the same name, or if it's something that you see that it's exactly the same design, and you see 100 different, products like that on Amazon, or 20 different, it's very, very familiar to you, I would say there's not much of a risk in it, because there's 20, 30 companies that are selling the same product. But if there's something that you see that there's only 2 or 3 products of, I would say that's something that if you feel that you want to import that, you should definitely reach out to a lawyer and ask him,
More importantly, would be in the reverse scenario. If you're trying to make something trademarked, how would you prevent the Chinese company from then taking your product and selling to a bunch of other people?
Impossible.
Got it.
Impossible. Unfortunately, they will do that, and that's why we have to be careful with other people's products.
Got it.
Anybody else? I guess not. We could also ask questions after, so that's fine. So let's move on to what's the best way to source items from China and how we can maximize our purchasing power. So I'm a big believer in trade shows. For me personally, I could say that I've never gone to a trade show without leaving at least with one deal. But you have to do your due diligence before. You have to know, I mean, that's just a suggestion that I like to use myself. If I go to a trade show, I go, obviously there's a lot of booths at trade shows where you don't know exactly what you find, but I always like to go prepared. If it's a certain category, if it's a certain item, whether it's, you know, if it's, you're looking for wine accessories, let's say, you know, what do I want in wine accessories? Do I want decanters, glasses, or open-minded? But just go for a target and make sure that before you go to a trade show, you go on the website. You could go on the trade show's website, whether it's Global Sources or Canton Fair or CES, whatever you do. You go to the website and you see if there's a specific factory or vendor that might have the product that you're looking for prior to yourself going to there. So you could already prepare yourself, you know, with any questions you might have, anything you want. But I would say the best way to source is definitely trade shows. There's other websites, like I said, Global Sources today kind of became a global online trade show. What I mean by that is any company that exhibits at trade shows now is becoming more familiar as well with a lot more programs like CES or Canton Fair. But I personally like Global Sources a lot because they have a lot of different categories and they do it all over the world. So you could find products from not only China, but you know, Germany, South Africa, Europe, and etc. So Global Sources, you could go online, and like I said before, you can just, if you don't have time to go to a trade show, you could literally go online and search for what you're looking for. Just type in the product just like you would do on Alibaba, but this would be a lot more secure in my opinion than Alibaba because they have to go through a lot more than Alibaba. So Global Sources is I would say is pretty good. .com. Then I would say Alibaba is pretty good, but I would personally never order from a vendor or a factory on Alibaba if they have less than a year or two and at least a gold medal. So what gold is on Alibaba is basically it's security levels. So Alibaba has a lot of security levels on just showing how, you know, factories can secure themselves. So if they pay, let's say, it's all about the money over there really, but if they pay $10,000 a year, they'll get one gold medal, and obviously Alibaba goes physically and they go down to check and make sure that this is legit. They kind of do the work for you. And you know, if you're sending payments and you go through the Alibaba system, that's also secure. It's kind of like PayPal, but through Alibaba. Alipay it's called. Another thing is, if someone feels ever that they're not comfortable enough to source by themselves, they don't know enough about the business, they don't, you know, they just want someone to do it for them. There are many companies out there. I actually own one as well called Proactive Sourcing, but there are a lot of you know, more, you know, companies that have been doing this for many years. Big companies out there, and they'll do the work for you. Part of what I do in the company that I own is as well, we'll do everything from A to Z. If someone feels he's not ready to do it on his own, we can help them establish relationships with Chinese factories, source products, sample products for them, go through you know, labs. If you're doing your own products, your own patents, and you need to do a lab search, if it's you know, lead-free or any stuff like that. There's a lot of companies out there that can help and assist with someone who doesn't have enough experience. Okay, so that's basically some of the ways that I would source products. Now, let's move on to maximizing your purchasing power. So before talking to any factory, Like I said before, it's about the relationships. You got to come in strong. Maximizing your purchasing power means, to me at least, I would go in and I would show the factory that even if it's my first time and it's a category that I don't know at all, I have no clue what I'm talking about, I have to go with confidence. Factories care about relationship. They have to know that you're a big player in the game, otherwise they'll just put you aside for someone else. Even if you're not, even if you're just someone new, I would suggest every time, this really helps with negotiating as well. It really helps if you show them that you're a big company. Even if you're literally just one-man shop and you're just looking to buy a few, make some pants or import some headphones. Make as if you know your stuff. Show them that you're a big you're a big player in the game. Let's see.
What does that mean? Make a big purchase?
No, so like one thing you can do is, which would help with negotiating, for instance, that it's kind of like a tactic against theirs. So when you negotiate with China, the only way to negotiate is by quantity. So if, let's say, you say, I want 1,000 pieces of a pair of headphones, and they'll give you a $10 price, let's say. Now you say, oh no, look, I want to get it for $9. They'll say, okay, you want $9, get 10,000 pieces. There's no negotiation factor when it comes to they're not going to give you a better price based off of nothing. You have to get more quantity if you want a better price. Now, if they go as low as, usually the percentages are very, very low, just an FYI. If they tell you, start you off at $10, don't think you're going to get $8. It's not like buying, if anybody has wholesale business over here, and someone's buying 1,000 pieces, you could negotiate that $2. Over here in China, there is no negotiating that $2 unless you're getting thousands, a lot more than what you originally wanted to order. So I would suggest that if you're willing to negotiate the price with them, if they're willing, I would say, if you know that you want to order 1,000 pieces, tell them you want to order 5,000. Tell them you want to order 4,000. It's going to get you a little bit cheaper. Their start off point is not going to be $10. It could be $9.80. It could be $9.75. Work off of that, and eventually you still want your 1,000 pieces. So you could just lower your quantity to 1,000 pieces and tell them you want to do a test order, which is very, very, don't be scared. They want us. There's tons of them, but there's only a few of us. Meaning, when you're looking to buy, it's very, it doesn't matter what the product is unless you want a very specific product that the actual factory makes, and you're not just looking to brand your own product. Always keep in mind that there's tens of factories that will do the same exact product, knocking off of each other to our benefit, because we can negotiate better prices with them. Obviously, when you come to trade shows, obviously you have to come prepared with business cards. Maximize, let them feel that you really own a big company. Some people that I know, like I gave advice to someone that went to a trade show before. I told them, create a domain, go to Squarespace, Wix, whatever it is, create a simple domain, upload 5 products over there that you don't even own, just buy pictures, put up your products over there, tell them it's your website. It helps with relationships. That's basically how I think we can maximize our purchasing power, and as well as some of the best ways to source products from China.
You don't check it?
They don't check it? Well, they'll check it, but the lead is going to be, it's going to end up going to your email. So they're not going to purchase anything from you. They just want to see that there's an actual company that they're dealing with, and not just a guy that is just doing a test order on 1,000 pieces, and we're going to give him a better price for no reason. Any questions? Okay, I guess we can move on. I think for okay, so this is going to be a step-by-step guide on how to import products from door to door.
Before you get to that, back to the sourcing side. You talked about importing different products that currently exist that factories currently make. If somebody has a concept, a children's cereal bowl, it's out there in the market right now, shaped like a square, and you want to make it shaped as a hexagon. what is the step-by-step process to identifying a factory that can make it to your specifications, to make sure you're not dealing with, like you say, some of the charlatans out there, and finding the right factory? You're going to walk around Canton Fair and meet 1,000 booths. What's the first step you take? I know I want to make this bowl, and I want to make it in a hexagon. What's the first step you would take to identify the factory that would be right for you?
First of all, a lot of factories will tell you that they're willing to do the molds for you and they're willing to do the toolings for you. Most factories in China don't actually own the molds for the products that they sell. A lot of them, they share molds, they work together with each other. If a factory says that, yes, we can make the molds for you, and we'll show you the toolings, and we're not outsourcing it, meaning they can actually make it in-house by them, that's a good way to know if that's the right factory or not. If the factory says, look, yeah, we have, I would suggest ask them if they have companies, play a trick on them, ask them, do you know a good factory? Do you do it yourself, or do you know anybody good that will do it? I don't mind if you outsource it. Just let me know if you're going to be doing it or you're outsourcing it. If they tell you they're outsourcing it, then I would say that, that's okay, it just might be a little bit more pricey.
How do you find those factories? How do you find factories that make bowls?
Any factory will work with you. If you go to a factory that makes headphones, just as an example, it's just plastic or ceramic, whatever it is, if they can source the material, they can make the mold. So it's not about necessarily, I'm not saying that they will do it, but if they can source the material that you're looking for, most factories will do it regardless of their industry.
You're saying is that any factory makes anything?
They can, potentially, especially if you're doing a new mold. If you're doing something brand new, they don't have any, why wouldn't they do it? I mean, I would do it personally, why not? It's new business for me. I don't sell bowls, but if I would have a factory that sells a plastic material and now someone wants to say, I would say yes, I'll make the mold. I mean, the mold cost isn't going to be different by this factory or that factory if it's a brand new mold. They still have the same cost to them, which can be anywhere between $7,000 to $10,000 on a simple mold.
You find them at the trade shows.
You can find them at the trade shows, but not only. I mean, if you have a factory that does bowls currently, and you order a sample and you're fine with the sample, that would probably be your best bet. If you know the material is good, I would suggest looking into certification. Because again, any factory, especially if it's a food item, you might need FDA certification on that. So I would suggest going directly to working with a factory that has that certification. And by the way, FDA, just on the topic, is not that easy for factories. It costs a lot of money to get an FDA certificate. So if you know that you're dealing with a factory that you have that type of product you're looking for, and they have FDA certification on other products, I think that's definitely a good one. But the way to source it is, you can do trade shows, Alibaba, Global Sources, Canton Fair, go on websites. You don't have to go to a trade show to source items. I just think it helps with building an actual relationship, which in my opinion will result in getting a cheaper price at the end of the day. But I think you don't have to go to a trade show. You could, there's also companies out there in the US, if you're, again, that specifically deal with molds, that you could do it, the whole thing, you could build your own mold in the US, or at least get a 3D demo in the US, and then transfer that to China. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but you know who you're dealing with over here, Okay, so any other questions before we move to the next topic?
I have a question. First of all, you just said that if he's looking to make a cereal bowl or whatever, he has to find someone who has gold status at 2 years and up. And as long as he's making good silicone, then you can just submit them his style. But I was told that some companies have every bowl, sometimes they'll just charge you like $1,000 for every bowl. And sometimes people will have it because they own it.
The factories.
Isn't that true? Yeah, some
Well,
factories.
Yeah, I mean, he was asking something if he wanted to make a completely new product, so which would be a new mold, which the factory doesn't own. So if you do that, I mean, obviously, you could work, just back to your question as well, but you could work with factories also that if they want to own the mold, and you will get a royalty on everything that they sell. That's just back to you. But if you would allow them to own the mold and not yourself, you could work on deals like that as well. That they will own the mold, but you'll work on a royalty. So you get money if they sell it to someone else, and you could send people to check their invoices or bookkeeping. You can work out a deal with them to make sure that they're not selling it to anybody else.
The other question was, if you prefer global sources because it's verified, the show owner,
As opposed to what?
as opposed to Alibaba, but I was told that Alibaba would rather reply to you as no one, but if you want to show, you have to be some kind of company for them to even look at you.
That's exactly my point that I said before, that you want to go to shows. Alibaba is not establishing a relationship that's going to lead you to saving more money at the end of the day when you want to buy large quantities. Global Sources will, because Global Sources is a trade show corporation, basically, that the whole idea behind it is to establish relationships of companies that have an actual company, that have a brand, that have, they're importing, and they just want to import more. It would allow, I think it would allow you, if you do Global Sources as opposed to Alibaba, and you show them that you are someone, it will be more beneficial for you. But if you don't want to do that, if you don't have the experience on opening a little bit of a website, or you don't want to go out and you don't want to make a business card, Alibaba is still very secure. I mean, it's still just my personal preference is Global Sources, but Alibaba is.
Because they'll get upset sooner than ever if you're not ordering a lot of quantity from Global Sources. I see what you're saying, that you develop a relationship, but as a starter,
Who will get upset? The factory?
yeah, because you keep saying that as long as you pretend that you're a big company,
Right.
but they'll expect from you soon big orders.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, is maybe you should start with Alibaba, so verify.
Well, the factories on Alibaba and on Global Sources could be the same exact factory. It doesn't matter if you go here or there. It could be you're reaching the same person. Just my preference is Global Sources. But again, I don't think just in my opinion, my mentality is never to think about, not in a negative way, but their feelings. I have to be in the control. I have to be in control. The ball is always in my park. If they don't like that, I could just move on to the next factory. If they don't like the rules that I give them, I put on every invoice that I get from a factory, I send them a contract that they must sign, that if I get sued in the US at the end of the day, because of the product that I imported, they're going to have to share the lawsuit or whatever it is. If they don't like it, I can move on to the next factory. It's not like, we have to be in control, because any product you want, you could source. If it's not over there, you can source it from the next person.
What is a reasonable minimum to order from the factory? I would say try something
As a
out.
starter,
Yeah.
I would suggest don't go crazy. It also depends where you're looking to sell. If you're looking to sell on Amazon, I would say don't get more than 1 or 2 products. Order 500 pieces of each, and focus on those 2 products. Make sure they do good. If you're not focused on Amazon, if you're focused on retail stores, you could go a little bit more. You could raise that to 5 products and a little bit more quantity. It really depends on your sales channel, where you're focused. But as a starter, I would say you don't have to go crazy unless you have a lot of money and you know what you're doing. You're just investing, then it's okay. But if you're not, go slow.
So as far as they're concerned.
As far as they're concerned, these days they'll take any order, but obviously under 500 pieces, they'll it's just going to increase your price. They'll do it, but instead of charging you $1, they'll charge you $1.35 or $1.50.
And it's a number of pieces, not a dollar amount. It's more expensive amount.
It's no, it's not a dollar amount. Obviously, if you're ordering a machine, for instance, or something more expensive, they'll work with you. If you're ordering an expensive drone for $200, yeah, they'll give you 100 pieces. It's fine. But if I'm talking like anywhere between $10 to $50.
Minimum quantity order.
Yeah. MOQs usually minimum quantities are usually 500 to 1,000. If you want less, they will give you less at a higher price.
If you build something proprietary, like you make your own molds, how worried do you have to be if they're going to share this now, your idea or your thing, with one of their other customers? You know, take your ideas away.
Well, what you can do, if you don't want to share the molds with them, what you can do, which is if you actually own the molds, at the end of your production, take the molds back. Take them, secure them by you. They could replicate, but not one-to-one. You know, that's what you could do. If you leave it by them, you're not in control. Unless it's a reliable factory.
You find that they go and they share, that they give
Yeah.
you the whole idea, they do.
For sure. Definitely.
So as a follow-up to that, do you have any experience with actual patent infringement?
A little bit, yeah.
And how successful were any efforts in controlling it? If any?
Over here, you mean? On the U.S. side or Chinese side?
Both. Meaning, if you find someone that sourced the product there that is based off of what they have, are you able to go after the factory directly, or you can only go after the seller in?
Unless you're a Chinese person, you can't sue in China.
That
So
goes back
how-
to what you said that you put on every one of your contracts, that you're gonna. that they
It
share-
means nothing.
I know
It means nothing.
Correct.
I just put it. It means nothing.
It makes you sleep better at night.
Exactly. Exactly. It means nothing in China. I mean, I personally have a company in China that I opened for these reasons with a Chinese partner. There's no money involved at all, but if anything, happens, he's gonna benefit from it, but at least I know with him, I can sue another Chinese company.
So you in fact can. You're saying somebody else cannot, but you, since you have
He
that.
won't benefit, but the other company will lose out.
Well, yes, if you have a Chinese partner,
So you'll get 50% of your thing back, or whatever your partnership is with your
Yeah.
Chinese guy.
but just average U.S. resident or non-Chinese resident is not gonna benefit or get anything at all from China, unless it's a really big company. And I started this because I imported a product once that was very similar to a product that I liked in the U.S. It wasn't the same, and I ordered it a few years ago. It was a wine accessory, some sort of wine accessory, and I made the factory do it, and they agreed to it, and they agreed because they were a very big factory, and I knew that at the end of the day, at least I'm a little bit more comfortable with, if I get a lawsuit, obviously I did my research, patent research and making sure I'm secure, but if I do get a lawsuit, I'm a little bit more comfortable in showing the person who's going to sue me that I have something written down with the factory. And in the U.S. side, I mean, it really depends. I mean, if you own a mold and you sell in China, that's already between you and whoever's infringing on your patent.
Are you always on the importer record, on record? So when you're bringing in stuff, you're always on the line?
What do you mean on
Are
that?
you always the importer of record?
Yeah, when you bring it in.
Well, that's a tricky way of, yes and no. So if I'm importing an item, and I know it's a little bit, this is one thing everybody should take note of. If you're importing an item and you're a little bit, you're not sure what to do, I would suggest, obviously if you know it's a patent or if you're 100%, if it's a patent, don't import it. Never. You will get sued, they will come after you, they'll try to, if it's a big company, they'll try to come after you personally. I don't know if they can or not, but they will try.
But if you're not importer of record, regardless, they can't get you, they're gonna get the importer of record.
Right, exactly. So what I would suggest, if you're importing an item that you're not sure of,
For
import
lead,
it
you're talking about for lead and for paint?
No, for patent.
for patents and trademarks.
All patents and
Well, it's
trademarks?
not only that, it would be for any type of liability.
For any type of liability.
Okay, fine.
Open another corporation, open something like that, don't have any money involved with that,
Gotcha.
import it under that corporation. If anybody sues you, just dissolve the company.
What are the prices for the sourcing with another company? Like the charge percentage?
Yeah, it depends on volume, could be 5 to 10% on average. Yeah. You like the answer?
Yeah. Well, no, we like the answer, right? We happen to bring in a lot of containers and go through other people presently and want to sidestep that. But we already know the factories who we deal with. We just want to go directly to them. So at that point, is it still 5 to 10%, or is it lower, because all you need is somebody to make the introductions and somebody to...
I mean, if you know the factories and they know that you're you,
Well, they sell us, but they sell us through a third party.
are
But
you
they
in
do
contract
sell
with the
us.
third party or no?
There's no contracts.
So just tell them you want to order direct, you'll get a cheaper price. I mean, are you paying this third company, are you paying them a percentage?
Well, we're buying officially from the third company, but when we receive it, we're always receiving the factory, because we do our own freight forwarding. So we're always receiving the factory, the importer of record, who is the company who's actually selling it to us, all the information there, but who's billing us is that importer of record.
Okay.
So
Which is
we
a
know all
US
the
company.
information we need to
Okay.
buy direct. So to
Okay.
speak.
So yeah, I mean, I would say go direct. Well, yeah, you're paying them. They're not taking a percentage, but they'll just write $1.25 instead of you going to the factory and buying it directly for $1. Especially if you're doing your own freight forwarding.
But we were
And
always
that's-
scared because of liability issues.
Like
Any liability,
lead,
FR when it comes to mattresses, or lead, or...
I mean, I'll tell you like this: if you order volume, 200, 300, over $100,000 a year, if you take any product and you send it to a lab to be tested for lead, it's going to cost you about $400, and I could help you with that as well, to lead you to the right people.
They don't do bait and switch. Are there quality controls on the actual?
I mean, they can. I mean, you just have to make sure that you're doing the right. You're dealing with the right people. Yeah, I mean, so I know factories that if you give them something under the, I mean, labs, give them something under the table, they'll give you the right certificate. But I wouldn't do that if, obviously, if it's something that can affect someone else's life. Of course, you know, that's a scary situation. But you know, it's a little shady if you're asking me that. Yes, but.
Right, that's why we have imported record as a third party, so let them do the due diligence, let them make sure that everything's quality controlled, and then we get something that's 100%.
Whose brand is it? Yours or theirs?
It's no brand, these are off-brand things.
Yeah.
Off-brand. Okay, so.
We're in the furniture industry, so it doesn't have to have...
Okay, so then they're on the hook.
Yeah.
So, look, I mean, the reason why I asked you what kind of volume you're doing, and it's not important to me, I'm just saying if you do enough volume, you can save that difference to what you're paying this third party right now on if you take your own products and send it to a lab to be tested. You can save that money annually. You just have to do a calculation if it's beneficial for you or not. I think that would be pretty fair.
And just open a shell corporation for imported record.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it has to have some movement. You can't just dissolve it because, you know, you have to also keep it completely separate. That's something that I can talk to you after this. I don't know how much time we have left, but let's just move on quickly to the step-by-step on how to import from door to door. I suggest write it down. So sourcing, like we said before, some of the best places to source: trade shows, Alibaba, Global Sources. There's another one called HKTDC, which is the Hong Kong Trading something Corporation. It's kind of like Global Sources. They're also very, very upscale, very nice website. You can find a lot of factories on there as well. Okay, so sampling is when you sample it. So assuming you source an item, and now you want to sample it. You sourced, you like a product, whether it's your own mold, whether it's a new mold, an old mold. You source this, let's say let's go back to the pair of headphones. You source a pair of headphones. Anytime I source a new product, and I'm comfortable with the factory, I know what I'm doing, I like them, obviously we have to sample the product before. So I would always buy 2 samples. I always order 2 samples for myself. One for me to dissect, open it up, look at the insides, look at the outside, interior, exterior, and making sure that when I actually make the order, it's identical inside and outside. Now the second pair that I order is just to make sure that the quality is the same. Like, I'm just talking about headphones, so if it's sound muting, there's a lot of games they can play with that. There's 2 main very large companies that do Bluetooth chips in the world, and there's a lot of other smaller companies that have knockoffs. So if you would order, for instance, the reason why I would order 2 is just to make sure that the first one I would dissect, and make sure that I take pictures and I save all the parts inside. So when I'm done with production, before I give them the final payment, I would tell them, okay, give me. I would usually either send someone to China or tell them to send me a box of samples that they pick out randomly, and then I check each one of those samples randomly, and you can get them to pay for that as well. Those few samples that you order, and go through them and make sure that your exterior and interior are identical to the samples, because
So there's like sampling stage 1 and sampling stage 2?
well, there's sampling and then there's inspecting, which is after production. Yeah.
You're talking about a pre-production sample.
Yeah, so pre-production sample, yeah, so if you go to a trade show, you see, or you speak to a guy in Alibaba, and you see a product you like, you want to order a sample just to see how it is, order 2. Always order 2. Well, it depends if you need to open the product and dissect it. If you don't, if it's just like a cereal bowl or something like that, fairly simple, order 1. That's okay. Always get them to pay for it also.
So when you said order 2, the second one?
So the second one, the first one I'm going to use, so I have all the parts, and I want to open it up before I actually order it, to make sure that the description that they're giving me on this product is what it is. So if it's a Bluetooth chip that's, let's say, ABC company, when I make the order, I don't want the knockoff. I want this company. So that's one sample. Now the other sample is, obviously after I dissect it, I'm not able to put it back so I can listen to it. So that's what I'll use the other sample for. But it's only for products that are mechanical or stuff like that.
You mentioned about the last payment, so what should you anticipate, how much do you up front?
So here, let me get to that. So after the sampling, after you order your sample and you're comfortable with the factory and you know that what you got is very, very good, you're comfortable with it, then you move on to obviously making sure that the factory is the right factory and you make sure they're legit. One of the steps we spoke about before, looking through and making sure that the invoices match the factory information on the website and following up with that. Assuming that you have all of that stuff, obviously negotiating is very, very powerful. You can negotiate and present yourself however you want. Once you have your product and you know, okay, this is the product, I'm comfortable with it, the following step is deposit. Most factories work on 30% deposits, so if you order something that's going to cost you, if you order something immediately, they're going to ask you for a 30% deposit. In fact, if you know that you're dealing with someone that's going to say, I accept PayPal, credit card, stuff like that, it's not a factory. Factories in China do not accept PayPal. Trading companies do accept PayPal. Trading companies in China are not necessarily a negative thing, especially for new people to China. Trading companies can be very beneficial and it can help out a lot with sourcing items. They have a lot more SKUs under their belt and they're able to help you out. But make sure they're legit, obviously, and basically once you follow up with the 30% deposit, so assuming that you pay that, depending on what kind of product, it's going to take anywhere between 15 to 45 days, could be less, more or less, but days for production. Once production is ready, obviously you take that and you must inspect. I would always suggest, unless you're very, very comfortable with the product, unless you own the molds, I would even suggest then, why not? It doesn't hurt. You can inspect your product. You can, if you can't go to China, if you don't want to ship your product, if it's too heavy for you, if it's too cost effective, and you can't ship it to China, you can't actually inspect it yourself, you can send companies to the factories. It usually varies anywhere between 250 to 350 bucks per item to inspect.
Your quality control company?
Quality control company, I do that as well for other people. Yeah, we have an office, like if you're asking, so I have an office in China, we do that for other companies.
You send people down to factories to inspect your products?
Not only my products, but yeah, but for other people as well.
Per product or
Per factory, so you're saying if someone gets 2 different products from the same factory?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so that's a little tricky, depends on what they need. but it's negotiable, obviously. If someone goes, you're not going to charge the full amount, you could charge an extra $100, and if it's the same factory, then yeah, we'll work at the price. Or if it's not me, then whoever the company you're going to be dealing with should usually work with the price. But usually the price varies between $250 to $350 for inspecting a product, and that should give you everything. That should give you a full report of the quality control, how the actual product is. Just make sure a lot of companies, especially if you decide that you want to go to China, make sure you know what to look for. Could be you're new to the industry, you don't know what to look for, and if not, then I would suggest using a company that does know, your specific product that you're looking for. So assuming that you pass this and you're comfortable with the inspection, everything looks good for you, you're ready to move on.
Second, what if the inspection didn't go well? You already gave them 30% deposit. Now,
So
they didn't do well. So what do you do now?
Okay, so if the product isn't good, obviously, you have your logo on it. If you don't have your logo, it's a little bit tricky because you already paid your 30%. They could just sell it to someone else, but most factories don't do that. Most factories believe in long relationships, and that's why it's very important in the beginning, like I said, to show them that you're big, so you can think the future. Don't think right now. Let them think that you're big. You're always doing a test order, especially if it's a new product. Just gonna do a test order. This way, you can tell them, oh, I want 5,000, but then, oh, you know what? Let me just get that 1,000. I'll do a test order. If it sells good, I'll order 5,000 or 3,000, whatever it is. So usually, if it's not good, you could just tell them. You must, and this is something that you should also put in the contract before. If the products are no good, if it's 30 upon inspection, the factory is liable to change or modify everything to the original samples that we received. Very important. So good question. Yeah, at their own. Yeah, for sure. They must do that. I've had that before, and usually they're very compliant with that as well. They believe in long-term relationships. So assuming you passed your 70, you gave them your 70%, everything is good. We're down to logistics and basically getting your factory from China to the US. Fairly simple. It's not a big deal at all. I know it sounds like it is a big deal, but honestly, it's not. It's basically you just have to make sure that you have a good freight forwarder. They will take care of everything in China. You just have to give them the address of the factory in China and your address in the US. They'll take care of everything besides, some freight forwarders do that, but besides customs in the US. But there is customs in China. I've had containers held in China in customs over there, but ended up being released. If you have a good forwarder, they can release it for you. And the last step is basically getting through customs in the US. There are 2 websites that I would suggest you write down, which is very, very helpful for any product category. And those are the customs websites. One of them, the first one is called cbp.rulings.gov. That website has a search bar, and you could go literally any product in that search bar that you could think of, whether it's a cereal bowl, whether it's a pair of pants, whether try to be descriptive. It's basically, this whole website is correspondences between importers and the border, the customs border, CBP, Customs Border Patrol. And they will basically, it's emails, and so you would type in a product, how much, like let's say wool pants, and it's going to give you exactly how much duties there will be on wool pants. It's going to say from China, from Mexico, there's different tariffs obviously. You can find that. Now the best way, this is a side thing, but there is a way to, so assuming, I'll give you an example. So I import, one of the products that I import is headphones. So headphones, if you go to this website, cbp.rulings.gov, you type in the search bar, headphones, that's going to pop up from China, from Italy, whatever it is, you choose from China. It's going to tell you 4.9%. So then the second website that I wanted you to write down, it is a tariff chapter. Actually, Google it. I don't remember the exact website, but it's called a tariff chapter. What this is, every category that we import is a different chapter within CBP's book. And basically it's broken down to the T. You could find any product, any material, and there's ways. So assuming that I just go and I see 4.9%, the tariff is usually consists of 10 numbers. So it's going to start, so Bluetooth headphones, for instance, starts with an 8.5. So what I would do is and it's 4.9%. So what I would do is I would take that, and I would go to chapter 85, which is my chapter. So the first two that it starts with is the chapter that you would look into it. Then I would do Control F, to search. It shows up as a PDF, and basically I would search headphones. Now I would look. There are some tariffs within those headphones that can be free of duty, free of charge. So if you would go to CBP's website, just off the bat, you'll be charged 4.9%. But if you do a little bit more research in the second website, I could give it to you right after here. I just forgot what it was, but it's a tariff chapter website. You could look into that, and you'd be able to find tariffs that you could tell your importer that can potentially give you a cheaper than 4.9%.
Importer being the freight forwarder.
The customs broker, sorry. Your customs broker. And that's basically what I wanted to deliver to you guys tonight. If anybody has any questions.
So once the stuff is paid for from the factory, so you have two people after. You have the freight forwarder and the customs broker, right? So first of all, what's the cost on like both of those steps? And also the customs broker, you're telling them, okay, it's 5%, so here's 5%, like 1,000 units. How does that work?
So that's exactly my point. So he asked a nice question. What would it cost me to import a container on average? And how do we know, who sets the rules on customs rulings? How do I know if it's 5% or more or less? So to answer your first question, containers really is, it all depends on the size. There's 3 average sizes. There's a 20-foot, a 40-foot, and a 40-foot high cube, which is a little bit more than regular. A 20-foot, there's not a big difference in gap from the price. Usually, I would say that it's anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 door to door. In New York, that's my industry. So, in New York, $3,000 to $4,000, any container size. So if it's a 20-foot container, as opposed to a 40-foot HQ, you're talking a difference of $500. So always make sure when you import, if it's less than 10 CBM, so cubic meters, you could just do something that's called an LTL, which is a less than container load, and it's going to be a lot more cost effective. Try to fill up. If you have friends that import, try to fill up your container as much as possible. Now to answer your second question, like I said before, if you don't do the chapters, if you don't go to the chapters, and all you do is focus on, let my customs broker decide the tariff for me, they'll do that. But the majority of the time, you'll be at the higher price. I've gone down from 15% duties on items to 0, literally 0. Custom brokers usually charge anywhere between $150 to $300 per container.
So they're collecting the customs that you owe, and they're giving it to the government?
Well, you could ACH that directly to the government, or they'll do that for you. Not a problem. I personally like them to handle it, because if I'm on vacation, if I'm sick, if I'm not able to do it, I know that it got done, and they don't charge me for doing that, so why not? And they give me terms, which is important. I can work with 30-day terms, this way I'm saving the money.
Back to quality. How would you find a quality broker in China? How do you know which broker in China that not like a broker that brokers are good, but the guys that could go test your quality product? What kind of questions do you ask in order to see if they're legit or not? Do you ask to see their reports? Like, what would I ask for?
So I would definitely not suggest to use local Chinese people, because or companies, because at the end of the day, the question leads. The answer leads to the question. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing with Chinese companies. There's a lot of U.S. companies that can do that for you, that have offices in China, and they take full responsibility for you. for that. You can just Google companies, or I can give you a few names. I myself have a company like that as well, but you can just Google that. It's fairly simple. But there is no real way. Unless you know your product better than them, you know what you're importing, and you have a demand. You want them to check this point, this point, this point. Unless you tell them exactly what to inspect, they'll randomly inspect stuff, and it could be it's not what you're looking for as well.